Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Tiana Young. I am the Artisan and Programs Manager for Craft Lake City, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all today to our virtual Lunch and Learn discussion about our latest street side exhibition, Celebration of the Hand, Mother Wound, where we will be able to talk with the artist and photographer Russel Daniels about mining and extraction in the Western United States, as well as any other questions that arise. Next. Just a few quick housekeeping items before we get into the discussion is to please first keep your microphone muted so that all of the attendees can hear the presentation. You also have the option, if you so choose, to turn on captions, which you can do at the bottom of your screen using the live transcript option. And then this is meant to be an interactive discussion, so please feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat, and we'll be able to address those towards the end of the presentation. And then finally, we're always looking to improve our programming, so we will be dropping a link to a post presentation survey, and we would absolutely love it if you could fill that out so then we can make our programming even better. So a little bit about Craft Lake City before we dive in. We are a local 501c3 nonprofit arts organization with the mission to educate, promote, and inspire local artisans while elevating the creative culture of the Utah arts community through science, technology, and art. We do this in a number of ways, including our flagship event, which is our largest event, the DIY Festival, and we are going into our 16th year of that. So that will take place on the second weekend of August in 2024 at the Utah State Fair Park. And then we also have our second largest event, the 5th annual holiday market presented by Google Fiber, which will take place in Ogden, at the Union Station in just a few short weeks on December 1st and 2nd, and that is going to be a ton of fun. There's going to be over 120 local artisans, craft food vendors, commercial food vendors, performers, and STEM exhibitors, including new to this year, the Indie Game Arcade. So we would absolutely love to extend an invite for you to come join us and stop by and say hello. Another way that we enact our mission in the community is through year-round DIY workshops, where we host around 50 year-round workshops that cover a variety of topics, from printmaking to bookbinding and anything in between. So we invite you to go check those out on our website at craftlakecity.com/workshops. And then, of course, today we will be talking about one of our curation projects, specifically these 14 metal frames that we call plakats, which are the German word for billboard. And they are on display on the downtown streets of Salt Lake City along Broadway between 200 West and Main Street, viewable 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, free of charge. And this exhibition will be up through the end of December. And we would love to invite you to go down there and check them out in person if you can. They are truly stunning. But of course, we'll also be showing you the work today. So with two different curation projects that we do one with Local Voices, where we work with local organizations, usually a social justice or mission-driven organization where we can amplify their voice in an artful way. And then, of course, we have Celebration of the Hand, which we will be talking about today. And that is our own curated project where we work with Craft Lake City artisans. And we're so excited that we actually have the Craft Lake City artisan responsible for our newest exhibition, that Mother Wound, here today, who is actually responsible for all 14 images that are currently displayed in the placards. And now it's time to meet the artist. So please welcome Russel Daniels. Russel Albert Daniels is an artist and photographer based out of Salt Lake City, and his work stands in the cross current of art reportage and re-indigenization. His craft places storytelling at the forefront of a rich photographic practice which aims to bring visibility to Native American and underserved communities. His projects explore the ways in which identity, place, and history illuminate the aftermath of manifest destiny. And we invite you to also go check out his website to see more of his body of work as well at russeldaniels.com. And then we also would like to introduce our discussion moderator for today, Parker Mortensen, who is the communications coordinator and sound waves producer at SLUG Magazine, as well as our guest speaker, Emily Lawhead, who is the associate curator of modern and contemporary art at the Museum of Fine Arts. And then at this time, I would like to pass it off to Parker so that they can moderate the discussion. And thank you so much for being here again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, hi, Russell, and hi, Emily. There's so much to talk about. I feel like an hour is not enough to get into all of this, but we're going to do our best. And there's so many entry points into how we could talk about these pieces. But I think first off, I kind of want to set a little bit more context around you, Russell. It feels like you're kind of having a moment. And I want to read a bit from an excerpt from a Southwest Contemporary article that a Utah arts critic and arts writer and our friend Scotty Hill wrote. So in addition to these, the celebration of the hand, part of the reason that Emily is here is that the UMFA exhibit Shaping Landscape, 150 Years of Photography in Utah is an exhibition that is featuring some of Daniel's photographs. And this is in addition to an exhibition at the Smithsonian Museum of American Indian in Washington, D.C., group shows at Minneapolis Museum of Art, and the new museum at Utah Valley University Museum of Art. And then next year, your work is going to be shown in the Tacoma Art Museum exhibition. So there's a lot going on. You're working as a freelance photojournalist in the meantime when you're not working on long-term projects. You've worked, your work has been featured in publications like National Geographic, Mother Jones, ProPublica, and as Tiana said, focusing a lot on preservation efforts, endangered species, populations, crises affecting public lands, desecration of indigenous remains. So you've got a lot going on, Russell, and an interesting career. And I wondered if we could open by just having you tell us a little bit, briefly, I suppose, about your career and what you feel like has led you to this point in your work.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, everyone. Just want to say thank you to Craft Lake City and the team there, Tiana Young and Angela Brown, and everyone else that's done a lot of work to get these amazing large 4x8 feet placards up on 300 South. They look incredible. I hope everyone gets a chance to walk along 300 South there and just check them out. It's to me, it's the best way to look at these aerial images when they're that large. You can really see the nuance and the detail, which really helps tell a story even more so. So I grew up here in Salt Lake. Me and my brothers are the first generation to move off of my family moved off of the Northern Ute Reservation. On my father's side, we are Dene, also known as Navajo, mixed with some Mormon settler, Northern European. And on my maternal side, we are Ho-Chunk, the people living in the Winnebago Reservation in Nebraska, along with some other Northern European mixtures there. Both of my parents, though we're not Ute, they both grew up on the Ute Reservation in eastern Utah. Long story there, but like I said, we're the fourth. Me and my brothers are the first generation to move off of the reservation, and so I grew up here in Salt Lake. Just as a kid, just always wanted to be an artist. You know, someone asked me when I was young what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I wanted to be a drawer, and I didn't really know what that meant, but here I am as a photographer, and you know, I think first most I am an artist, and I've spent the last 30 years trying to weave my interest in fine arts, in documentary photography, and kind of incorporating all that into my assignment work in the photojournalism world. The last 15 years, I got my bachelor's of arts in photojournalism at the University of Montana, and I've just been freelancing since then, nonstop. I've developed my beat kind of is often in Indian country, as we call it here in the Mountain West, Intermountain West, Southwest. And I guess my other unofficial beat is the aftermath of Manifest Destiny is what I've called it. Just spending a lot of time looking into public land issues, the climate crisis, and often how all of this relates to indigenous communities and people in the American West here. So do we want to talk about more about these assignments, or are we going to get into that next, do you think?
Well, real quickly, before we do that, Emily, I'd like to give you a chance to jump in here and tell us briefly a little bit about your role at UMFA and how you came to be personally interested in Russel's work and then to advocate for it, to have two of these images come into the permanent collection.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you to the whole team for making this exhibition happen and this event happen. And I'm just so excited to be, part of the conversation. I am new to Utah myself. I moved in February of this year. So coming up, I guess, close to a year now of being here. And I came across Russel's work very, very quickly when I first came, thanks to the really supportive art community here and some wonderful colleagues that were orienting me to all the amazing work that's being done here. And I was starting to put together an exhibition that ended up being called Shaping Landscape, 150 Years of Photography in Utah, as kind of one of my first projects here for the Modern and Contemporary program. And it was a really interesting opportunity to delve into our really expansive photography collection, which has not only a big collection of regional photography of Utah and the landscape and the place in which we are situated, but also a really heavy focus and interest in documentary photography and in kind of journalistic or activist work. And so I really found Russel's work to be at the intersection of all of these things that really is part of what the UMFA's collection is really focused on, but also at a really important voice that I wanted to add to this particular exhibition as a contemporary voice from the 2020s, really documenting what is happening right now in the history of photography. But thinking through some of the things that Russel was just talking about of dealing with this aftermath of Manifest Destiny. And I think that incorporating, continuing the conversation about how photography has been a really important tool in that some of the very early documentary photographers in the late 19th century were using that technology as part of the westward expansion and Manifest Destiny project. And I think that really is an important way that we can further some of our other decolonial, or what I know Russel likes to call re-indigenization of the conversation and of our collection and all of those things. So yeah, his work is just wonderful and such a great fit to some of the other work that we're doing over here.
Thank you. We're looking at the first in this series, which is titled Mother Wound. And Russell, I'd like for you to talk a bit about the idea of the mother wound, and how you feel like that is conceptually relating to this series.
Yeah, it's mother wound is a term that I kind of more or less randomly came across, and it caught my attention a couple of years ago, and I didn't quite know what it meant. It just stood out, and I can't even remember where I saw it, but it stood out, and it just echoed in my thoughts, and I was like, what does this mean? And you know, on a little more research, but by no means I'm a professional in this category by any means, but in psychology, it's a term used more recently about how our relationships to our mothers, and all of the the things that we felt like we should have received, all the love that we should have received and maybe didn't receive, is often attributed to how our system, and you can look at it here in America, our capitalistic system demands a patriarchal hierarchy, which requires women to more often than not be it allows them not to live their fullest extent, and in often cases this is reflected in our relationships with our mom and our parents. And there's been studies where it shows, you know, a simple level of trauma can be built up with say like there's this video of a mother, and it's a study. It's a mother and their child, and she's smiling at the child, and the child's smiling back. And they're laughing, and then they go to another take, same mother, same child, but the mother's not smiling, and she's holding the baby, and the baby after a minute just starts crying because it needs, and the mother's actually kind of frowning and not looking very happy, and this is all intentional. And it's just, it goes to show that there's these little moments that can start planting seeds of levels of trauma that I feel like can happen to everyone. And you know, hopefully everyone that does have, you know, a living mother. And so that's kind of the foundation of the term. But in a bigger sense, and in a broader sense, the whole ecofeminism movement really, and once again, I'm not a scholar on this topic at all, just kind of referencing these ideas. But at the foundation of ecofeminism is that, you know, a system that objectifies women is the same system that objectifies Mother Earth. And really, that's the final point of the project. And I really wanted to leave it kind of broad and open. I wanted people to question what the term means. I mean, it's pretty obvious once you start looking at the photos, like what it means. I mean, I feel like most people, you know, this is assuming, but most people can draw the comparison pretty quickly. So this series of work is so Emily was curious about my work, and it really spearheaded me getting all this work together. And all this work comes from the last couple of years. There's been 3 different assignments that I've taken from different nonprofit magazines, and I've been kind of just sitting on the work, collecting it, looking at it, editing it. And once Emily and the museum showed interest in it, I was like, okay, it's time to put this project together. And so the museum acquired the 2 pieces for their permanent collection, and then I just started finalizing the edit into this project that we see here now, the Mother Wound, and which is also not only the exhibit on the Craft Lake City placards, but also a zine that I made, just recently picked up yesterday, that will be for sale tonight at Essential Photo Supply in the 9th and 9th area. I'm having a zine pop-up sale, and we're also, I've printed out some images from this Mother Wound collection to be on exhibit there as well. So that starts at 6 p.m. tonight at the Essential Photo Supply. So
Thank you.
Yeah, some of these images are, like I said, from a handful of different assignments over the last few years. Really, the initial assignment that really kicked off the aerial aspect of my photography here, and it was the first time I've been up in a plane to do journalism and assignment work. It was a story with High Country News, and it was 2021. The writer Jessica Douglas was writing about the White Mesa uranium mill processing site in southeast Utah in San Juan County. It's the only uranium mill processing plant in the country. It's also a repository and waste storage for toxic waste from our country, and also from other countries sending it here. And so that's I just knew then that we needed to get up in the air to really see it, because the White Mesa Mill, they make it very hard to see it from the ground. They intentionally, so not everyone really understands how big it is and how what it does, what they're doing there. And I was just like, oh, we got to get up in the air. And luckily I get to work with some incredible editors at High Country News. Bear Guerrera there, he's been a photo editor of mine there for about 4 years now. And we had a strong working relationship, and I was just like, we got to get up in the air. And he's like, do whatever it takes. So really it was his trust in me that led to this body of work. And that trust was shared with a few other editors, including Mark Merman at Mother Jones Magazine, Andrea Wise at ProPublica as well.
That definitely sticks out to me, you having that moment of thinking like, we need to get up and see this from a different point of view, because I think on some level, we know that these sorts of things are going on, but it is hard to it's hard to recognize, much less internalize. And I think these photos present an opportunity to just engage with landscape in a way that we don't necessarily. There's not even a horizon line sometimes in these photos. We're looking down on it as opposed to kind of like incorporating it into a beautiful image first. As you've said, you're trying to bring an artfulness to your journalism work, and I think everyone can see how that's happening. And I would definitely encourage people to read the articles that kind of kicked off these photo series that that Russell was commissioned for, helping. For instance, one from Mother Jones titled "Utah's Suicide Pact with the Fossil Fuel Industry." The title sort of gives it away, but it's recounts writer Stephanie Mensimer's experience. And Russell, it seems like you were working with Stephanie on this, to go out to Vernal and to see land that the Estonian government had owns at this point. It's a 320-acre industrial plant that would process 28 million tons of stripped mine shale and turn it into 50,000 barrels of oil every day for 30 years, which was the idea. And Utah government is behind this. Representative Rob Bishop, who's from my district, was quoted saying that it has the potential to create significant revenue and jobs here in Utah and help with energy independence nationwide, which is a really nice spin on what is sort of, tragic. And then there's the water element to it here too. So in order to mine and process oil shale, Enefit, which is this Estonian company, hoped to suck as much as 11,000 acre-feet of water out of the Green River every year, which is about 10 million gallons a day, and that's enough to supply the daily needs of 90,000 households downstream in Arizona. So in my experience in reading these pieces and familiarizing myself with your work, it seems like there's this dynamic where whether it's the BLM or private business or what have you is entrusting our land to people who don't seem to either don't believe in the harm that it's having, that these practices are having, or don't care. Constantly just deferring to fossil fuel interests. And there's this also this, I feel like this obsession with making Utah relevant or putting it on the map, kind of joining the mainstream treatment of the land as a way of legitimizing our culture and our state. And so I'm curious for you, Emily, and for Russell, how you would, what you think about that, this idea that we're entrusting our land to people who don't really have a very vested stewardship in it and have these different concerns and constantly defer to fossil fuel interests.
I think that's pretty status quo for Utah, and I feel like the powers that be, they know that they can get away with this. I mean, if this was in Colorado or in California, it would have been shut down. And this picture here that we're looking at is fracking in the Uinta Basin. And it's just adjacent to the White River, which is a tributary to the Green River, which is a bigger tributary to the Colorado River, which is kind of the pyramid here of what our reporting is about, as well as the drought that we're in and how these oil and gas industries require a lot of water to produce what they're working with here. And I feel like one of the reasons I do want to get in the air is because nobody goes out to this part of the Uinta Basin. I mean, it's Brigham Young and the early pioneers declared it a wasteland, only good for Native Americans and wildlife. And what they didn't realize, though, was the carbon that's underneath the ground and the value of that. But they soon did learn that, and they soon learned how to manipulate the tribal people, the Ute tribe, out of their land. They kept squashing their borders here and shrinking the land. The tribe does benefit from their own oil and gas revenue that they produce, and the tribe does pretty well with that. And it's a weird crux because it's like that's just the power of hegemony of colonial powers, imperial powers, is that they get people hooked on this form of finance and money. And I feel like if more people were informed, more Utahns were informed about what was going on, and they could see what the oil and gas and our politicians and the decisions that they're making, as they say, on our better half, or a handful of jobs and a lot of money for some wealthy capitalists, then I think we need to challenge that. I think we need to figure out what is priority in our relationship to the earth here. It's this project really is showing how oil and gas and the drought, how it's affecting not only our landscape but also the physical health of the people here that live around here. And it's once again, I try to weave everything that I do to be able to make art out of it. And I feel like being able to make art out of it will help bring it to a bigger audience. And that's something that me and Emily talked about when we first met up, was how, like, this image in particular, like you said, Parker, like removing the horizon line, it kind of takes away what the realism in a sense is here. And it kind of, at first you might not realize what you're looking at, but when you start staring at it and looking at the detail, it starts to become clear. And so it's kind of a revealing form of storytelling, and it works really well on the placards downtown because they're 4 by 8 feet, and you can just sit there and look at them. You can touch them and see the detail. It's a really great way to format these large scale prints to look at this work, and really to have the impact to understand what these businesses and our politicians are doing here in the state.
Yeah, I can just add from my perspective also that some of these really big, complicated political and environmental issues and all of these things that we spend a lot of time, trying to wrap our brains around and to be engaged and to be informed. And sometimes the visual medium is really one of like something that really can communicate what's actually happening to a larger audience. And I think that's why this photojournalist and like intersection of activism and art projects work really effectively, because not only are these images shown as part of a publication that's exposing all of these facts and details and really critically examining the political landscape around it, but it just as well can be on display in the museum and part of a teaching tool for classes that are coming in, or the general public that's coming in to really see it from a new angle, but also to get to these really important themes and questions and ideas that are just as prevalent. So it's a really powerful way to keep art in the conversation and artists in the conversation of this important work that needs to continue to be done. And I think a lot of these images really show that. And I really love, and the conversations that have happened around this is the work that's in the Shaping Landscape exhibition here at the UMFA. And I've kind of been a fly on the wall for some really, really great conversations from students and other people that are really fascinated by this idea of something that is almost abstract, like that it's towing this line between abstraction and realism, depending on how you're kind of examining the piece, but a beautiful image, but also of a horrific subject and action. And like towing that line is really a fruitful place to start the conversation and to get people talking about these issues. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it sort of takes it back to the title of the show, the concept of mother wound. I mean, one, I think it's great that people get to see these images, at a younger age, not going through life without having seen what is, happening to Earth, and feeling disconnected from that until someone is able to show it to you. So I think it's obviously great that some of these pieces are part of the permanent collection and can be seen. And just speaking to that artfulness angle, and again, the title of Mother Wound, I think it's interesting because part of that concept is that it erupts from a dysfunctional relationship between a mother and a child, where a healthy version of that relationship doesn't get practiced. And so that the child doesn't have a model to understand that, which in this ecological context could maybe be seen as, we don't really grow up with a healthy relationship to our Earth. So it's unlikely that we're going to start, because we don't know what it looks like. It's not really been practiced for us. And I think this series kind of is a step in that direction, where it allows us to consider from a new perspective what is going on here, and that this is not the way that we want. We're going to continue this relationship until we actually take a look at what's going on. So I again love this framing that we've been using for it.
That's an interesting point, and a big part of it that you bring up, Parker, is that it's this idea that humans are greater than the Earth, right? And really, this idea of mother wound really, I feel like, begins in you see it a lot in indigenous cultures, where there's this sense of relationship to what is our relationship to our surroundings, and is it it's usually of equalness, and for some reason our culture, our system, which is our form of capitalism and patriarchy, has managed to put a huge wedge in between human and non-human and the Earth. And you have to question why, and why is that. There are some religious meanings behind that I feel like are not really accurate, and maybe propaganda for the capitalists to continue this wedge. And you look at the wedge, and what does it do? It allows people to own the land instead of be part of the land. They own it, and then they can do what they want with the land and treat it as they want and profit off of it as well. So I feel like a lot of indigenous cultures around the world have resisted these efforts to put a wedge in between their relationship between themselves and their communities and the earth. So I think that's also, there's a lot of points of that you can come in on this conversation, and it's kind of challenging because there's all of these spots are adjacent, or if not on indigenous territories, let alone the reservations right now. And that's part of the focus on most of these stories as well. And so these photos here of the copper mine are just incredible. I grew up just east of the Kennecott copper mine, which if you could look above on top of the Kennecott, it would look a lot like this. It's open pit type of mining. And so I grew up watching the Ochre Mountains, go from just a couple tailing piles in the 1980s till now. You can't even see a big part of the mountain because of all the tailings of the copper there. And it does put us in a weird place, a situation of what are our priorities, because I love my iPhone, I love my computer, I love my digital cameras, I love having access to cars and driving around. And it's like these are all byproducts of this type of mining. And it proposes just a strange tension that we have, we're almost forced to live in. I don't really know what the solutions are, just besides pushing for more and more greener energies.
Well, I think that the goal ought to be conviviality and bringing us into a more equal, like you said, Russell, equal relationship with the land that we live on and the place that we live. And I think that speaking to like the artistic side of what's happening here, there's an interesting dynamic where, in photography, a lot of the time what's happening is you're creating an object out of something, you're objectifying something, you're creating like a subject-object relationship. But these photos, I think, is a product of them being from a perspective that we're not very familiar with. I think do have an effect of giving us more of a subjective relationship to the objects in the photos. Again, like you were saying, we enjoy a lot of comfort, and that but at what cost? We're so disconnected from that, and intentionally so. Like you said, it's a wedge. It's a strategy, and it allows the status quo to perpetuate. So, I've looked at these photos so much, I could keep looking at them. There's not only do they have like that artistic value, but it so cleanly integrates with that. That need to like close the circuit to understand what is happening. So it's a rewarding experience to engage with these. And again, the plakat format is perfect to be able to see them that way.
Yeah, it's also really reflective up at the University Museum of Fine Art. The exhibit there, Shaping Landscapes, Emily's curated exhibit there, and they've managed to make these my print large as well, and there's a few other large format images up there that are worth just going up there. And by the way, tomorrow's a free Saturday at the museum. Every third Saturday, I believe, is free at the museum, and every first Wednesday is free at the museum. So go check it out. The exhibit is small, and we all wish it was 5 times bigger, but it's beautiful, and it's sad at the same time. And that's kind of the boundary line that I'm often working in: beautiful and sad. It's like sad songs, sad poems, but somehow beautiful. But yeah, go check out the UMFA's exhibit. It's up until March, I believe. Is that right, Emily?
Yep, until the beginning of March.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's a good segue too for us to, we've got about 20 minutes left in our lunch and learn, and we want to save some time for Q&A. Why don't we take a look at the specific photos that UMFA has acquired for the permanent collection, which I believe are slides 14 and 23. Yes, this is one of them, correct?
right.
So Emily, I'd love to hear a little bit from you about why these ones specifically, because there's even in just this series, there's 14 and there's so many to choose from. So why these ones in particular?
I know it was such a difficult process to decide. I mean, I would love to have this entire series to work with. And I think some of it really came out of Russell and me just kind of collaborating and discussing the themes of the exhibition. And I really wanted to, get his take on some of the other things that I was working with and the other themes that were emerging from that particular exhibition. I was really interested, especially for this exhibition that kind of, was the spark that got all of this moving in the first place, of these images that really were kind of humans at the edge of nature, or that were perhaps less obvious of the human intervention into the landscape, because I really wanted to toe that line between just a beautiful landscape image and something that shows active human intervention into that space. And so if you come to the exhibition here, you'll see that some of them are very obvious of a human body subject in the photograph. But a lot of them, it might just be a road, or it might be kind of a shadow of a person, or some infrastructure in the back that is really kind of, I was interested in these ones that you really had to think about to kind of identify and see where the human element is there. And once you identify it, it like screams at you of where humanity is seeping into these landscapes. And so that's kind of how these two got narrowed down on, but I of course love all of the works in this series. This one is not currently on view, but I hope it will be soon. And I think the color of it was just so striking in this line between what is the natural landscape. I mean, a lot of these colors are the natural colors of our region and of this area. But also thinking through what is being, extracted and how that process is affecting even the just like chemical or geologic makeup of the area. A lot of people that have looked at this image internally, and when I've discussed it with some others, I often get the statement that it seems like a scar on the earth, and that often comes up in discussion about it. So I think that's kind of how those particular works were in conversation with this particular exhibition. But in general, I'm also really interested in the idea of just the scale, that the way that these sites are almost designed and come together are really hidden from us on a human level, and when we kind of look at the fracking image, too, that's here, if you were physically standing in one of these spots, you would not really have a sense of how far this extends across the landscape. And so this idea of trying to help us to conceptualize the scale of what's being done in remote areas that may not be familiar to us. It's not something that we see every day when we're driving to work. And so thinking about what is on this land and how we might be able to conceptualize it in another way. So I definitely will say that Russell was very generous and helpful collaborator in kind of coming up with some of these themes in the exhibition and the works that fit in that.
Yeah,
Is there anything go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say they are at this scale on my laptop, and I'm assuming everyone has a similar type of screen. It is hard to see the details that really stand out, in the sense of you see the beauty and the color and the shapes of the land, the geography, but in the last photo of the uranium mine, there's an outbuilding that's pretty big and a big yellow tractor right in the middle, and it's hard to see it at this scale. So that is what's like right in the middle. There's a yellow tractor. You could probably see it, and the print that's up at the on exhibit right now in the at the UMFA, it's large enough where you do get to see it. And once again, this work works better on a large scale, and it's the first time I've really had the opportunity to work on large scale images like this. I would love to see him on the whole side of a wall somewhere. And but yeah, I think a lot of the work in Mother Wound, a lot of it is in Utah, the Uinta Basin, but it's some is also in San Juan County, Utah. But there's work also in Arizona and California as well. So it's kind of in the interior West. And I think why when me and Emily got together, we were like, we got to narrow for the exhibit. We got to narrow it down to Utah theme as well. So, but it's all what are state lines anyways, really, right? It's all interconnected, and it's like this photo now. I wish we could zoom in on it and you could just see the infrastructure there. This isn't quite the one. This is similar to the one that's at the UMFA permanent collection, but this is a different image of it. But they're very similar. And it's just, you look at it, it's like, oh, it looks like a circuit board, or it looks like it's this image does have the horizon line, and so it's kind of easy to like figure out what's going on quicker, I feel like. And once again, when you do remove the horizon line and you kind of looking more just right down from the airplane down onto the ground, you can start creating, this is where my artistic side comes in, and I'm just like, let's create abstract art here. And in this point, it's a useful tool in journalism and in documentary too, because it does make people think, I think, a little bit harder, a little bit longer. And once they kind of figure it out, it kind of hits them, like broadside in their face. It's like, oh wow, this is messed up. Yeah.
One other question I do want to ask just very quickly is about the logistical side of taking these photos, because I think that is also part of what, of the questions that come to mind when you look at these long enough is, how did you do this?
Right. So I'm not quite a landscape photographer. I've never called myself that. I've always tried to avoid cliche, or maybe work on the edge of cliche, as an artist more so. Often with journalism, you kind of just have to go for whatever's in front of you. But I don't have a drone. I'm not that interested in doing drone photography. So yeah, once again, I chartered planes for these different assignments, and these flight companies are all nonprofits. All of this work in particular is done in collaboration. This is something I couldn't have done on my own. Like, we got funding from the Water Desk for some of this work, which is an organization that puts a lot of money into journalism, reporting about the Colorado River and the drought happening. And since this is the Green River area and the White River area, there are tributaries to the Colorado River, we were able to secure funding for this project in particular right here. And so along with that comes some other cohorts that are like EcoFlight and Lighthawk, and they're nonprofit organizations that put journalists and conservationists and also tribal people up in the air to get a bird's eye view of their own land, to get a bird's eye view of what's going on in these desolate areas where there is oil and gas and mineral extraction, and also, what's become the result of that, this 23-year mega drought that we're living in. It's kind of, their goal is to help show how it's all interconnected. It's the same goal that I have, along with these nonprofit organizations that I work with. So I I prefer, like, I feel like drone photography is incredible and is an incredible tool for journalism, because like we're seeing, like in Gaza, you'll see some of these drones fly in through these destroyed parts of town and just in rubble. Like you couldn't do that in a plane, for one. But you've seen it also in like earthquake areas where major earthquakes have happened. These drones can kind of fly in and show you just the destruction of what's going on. But with drone photography, you're limited to a certain elevation. I'm not sure what that is, and you're not supposed to go over it. And then there's a lot of areas that you just can't fly a drone as well. So having access to these small planes, most of them were Cessnas, generously flown by amazing pilots that are just doing this, donating their own time and gas money for these planes to get us up in the air, so we can show what this drought is about that's happening, that this 23-year mega drought that's happening in the West here. And roughly we fly anywhere between like 1,000 to maybe 1,400 feet. And that gives us a chance, it gives me a chance to, with drone photography, you're kind of limited to your elevation, and things happen to end up being kind of very wide angle and gets kind of distorted at the edges. And you can't always see the detail. Like this image right here we're looking at kind of maybe is the most drone looking type of photography. You do see the horizon line and you see a wide scope, but when I can also use different lenses and just zoom right in and pull out more detail. And that's what I like about being in the plane. I can be higher up, use a longer lens, and pull in more detail that you just wouldn't see in a drone photography. And also it plays along with the line of how I also want to make visually interesting and as I say, art out of it too. Allows me to just kind of really crop in on the geographical formations that are most interesting to me, and as Emily said, this like element of man in nature. Like you can really see that even more when you're able to zoom in on it.
Well, thank you. We're going to move into wrapping up here. We've got a couple minutes left, but we want to remind you where you can see this exhibition, which is on 300 South, in between Main Street and, is that 200 South or 200 East? Or is that West? West. So yeah, this is on view through December 31st, through the end of the year. And there are 14, as we've said, and these are open 24/7. You can go see them anytime. And I would encourage people, as we've been saying, the best way to see them is to in large scale where you can see that detail. And there are also other opportunities to engage, such as with, you said tonight at Essential Photo Supply, 6 p.m. You've got a show there along with a zine, correct?
Right. A zine for sale. Come by, check them out. There's also prints there as well you can check out.
Yeah, what an opportunity. And we've got a couple questions that we want to get to before we wrap up as well. So I've got one of those here. And this comes from some of the people who had registered for this lunch and learn. This question is, how do you wrestle with the paradox of creating beautiful images of destruction?
How do I wrestle or wrestle? I don't know. I know I have to, like, I've spent this whole year has been so nonstop busy for me, and it's with my photography, and almost all of my projects deal with some heavy stuff, and most likely most of it is in Indian country, and it does add up. Like today I woke up just like with a huge headache and not feeling confident about this lunch and learn, just kind of focusing on some negative stuff. And I, one way I deal with it is like I love going to hot springs. In particular, some certain hot springs. It's a good way to kind of just let it all diffuse out of my body. But also, you know, I try to smudge every day and say some prayers. Um, but I feel like I just have to keep going forward and keep doing it, and hopefully it doesn't catch up too much to me. And knowing that the work is important beyond my own ego, it's important for people to see this. And I feel like there is a healing quality in presenting this work, even though it's of sadness and destruction. It's still beautiful, it's still art, and people are learning from it. So it's a strange realm for me to be in, and I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to deal with it. And if anyone has tips, please leave them in the chats.
Our next question is, I think, relating to the zine. It says, these images expand our visual literacy about the ways and places where Earth is wounded. Are there any plans to create a book or other platforms so that more and more people bear witness? I guess this could be a good opportunity to tell us a little bit what's included in that zine.
Yeah, the zine has all 14 photographs that are on the placards downtown. It has the two, which also includes the two images that has been acquired by the UMFA. The zine, so I'm more thrilled and happy and honored that my work is up at the museum, and it's kind of a lifelong dream, really. And it's an important place to view art and see art and talk about art and have these conversations. I'm also always trying to figure out a way to provide an opportunity and present my work to people that maybe can't make it to the museum, or maybe they can't go to the gallery. Not that I have a gallery really right now that represents me, but to buy my prints. And often my prints are in a limited edition, and they're made archivally with like expensive materials, and they're very, very expensive. And so that just leaves a lot of people out of the equation here of being able to acquire my work in general. And so I really like having the Craft Lake City celebration of the hand placards. It just allows anybody to go and look at them. If they can't make it to the museum, they can go down there on 3rd South and look at them and just, you know, check them out. But also the zine allows people to walk away with, you know, a self-published book that I made for $25. So it's a kind of a great entry point. I've sold a bunch of zines in the past, different topics, and they really resonate with kind of the younger artists in town and people that maybe can't afford to buy large prints. So it's just I'm just trying to figure out ways to disseminate the work to everyone.
Well, you've done a great job. There's so many different options, whether it's the placards downtown, which are free, the zine, seeing them at the museum, which has several ways of seeing those. So, and doing this. Thank you so much, Russell and Emily, again, Associate Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art at the Utah Museum of Fine Arts. Appreciate you so much. Tiana, is there anything you want to say about the supporters or anything else before we finish out?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out and a sincere thank you to our supporters for making this exhibition possible, specifically the Salt Lake City Arts Council, the Utah Legislature and Utah Division of Arts and Museums, the Temporary Museum of Permanent Change, Salt Lake County ZAP, the National Endowment for the Arts, the George and Dolores Eccles Foundation, and the Center for the Living City. And then, of course, to Russel Daniels, Parker, and Emily for participating in this really rich discussion on some really important issues and beautiful pieces of work. And then, of course, to everyone else who came to participate and listen in the discussion. If you want to find some more information regarding our programming here at Craft Lake City, feel free to visit our website at craftlakecity.com. And I believe a survey was dropped into the chat. So we would love to hear any feedback that you have regarding today's discussion, so that way we may improve our programming for the future.
Thank you, Tiana. Thank you, Russell, and thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.